She took the burst across the plate carrier and did not come off the gun. I am Petty Officer Second Class Damon Varick, SEAL Team 9, and I was not there when it happened. I was 46 hours behind her and 12 kilometers to the east when the position at Carn Ridge went hot. I am telling you what I know from the evidence we found when we got there, from what she told us in the vehicle on the way out, and from 11 marks on a plate carrier that a ballistics specialist later identified as 4 standard rounds and 7 fragmentation strikes. None of them fatal, all of them in the ballistic armor, not one of them stopping her from staying on that gun for the better part of 2 days. The strongpoint at Carn Ridge had been a relay position, a stone-walled compound on the high ground above the valley floor, used to support overwatch and communication relay for the element moving through Chevreau Pass. It was supposed to be held by a 4-person detachment. When the assault hit, the detachment was 2 people. Specialist Ian Corby, who was hit in the first exchange and was down within 3 minutes, and the person we know by the call sign Ironclad, who had been assigned to the position as a communications and intelligence specialist, and who was, in the language of the briefing I received when we were tasked for relief, a secondary asset, meaning she was not the primary reason the strongpoint existed. I want to be honest about the briefing I received, because it matters for understanding what we expected when we reached Carn Ridge. The operations sergeant at our staging base, Davern Forward, told us the position had gone dark 38 hours earlier. He told us that the last communication from Carn Ridge had indicated 1 WIA and 1 operator still in contact with the enemy. He told us we should expect to find 1, possibly 2, casualties. He did not say she was dead. He said, "Prepare for the worst and be ready to hold the position until relieving forces can expand." He said it the way operations sergeants say these things as a condition to plan against, not as an assessment he had any doubt about. The position had been dark for 38 hours. The enemy element in the valley had the numbers and the weapons to take it. The math pointed one direction. He did not know who Ironclad was. I did not know who Ironclad was. The file that came with the tasking described her as an intelligence specialist attached to the relay element, female, late 30s, assigned in a support capacity. The file did not include a service record. It did not mention the 31 months of special operations experience, the 2 prior deployments in a direct action capacity, or the marksmanship qualification she held in 3 weapon systems, one of which was the M240 machine gun that was the primary weapon system at the Carn Ridge strongpoint. These facts were in a different file with a different access level, and no one had thought to bridge them. I learned all of that later. What I knew at the time of the relief operation was that we were going to a position that had been under assault or threat for nearly 2 days, that we should be ready to clear it and recover whatever we found, and that the asset we were recovering was described as secondary. Secondary. We reached Carn Ridge at 3:40 on the 3rd day. The first thing I noticed was that the approach road had been cleared of debris. There was stone rubble and spent casings, and 2 abandoned enemy weapon systems, an RPG and a heavy rifle on the west face of the compound, but the approach itself was clean. Someone had moved the debris to maintain a clear field of fire. That does not happen at a position that has gone dark and stayed dark. That happens at a position that is still occupied and still being managed. The second thing I noticed was a muzzle on the wall. It was the M240, and it was pointed at us. Sergeant Carver on my left called out the identification challenge. 3 seconds of silence. Then a voice dry, low, the quality of voice a person has when they have not had water in some time, called back the correct countersign. We went in. She was in the northeast corner of the compound behind a fighting position she had improved after the initial assault, using stones from the damaged wall to raise and deepen the cover. She had angled the position so that the M240 could be operated from 2 firing apertures, one covering the main approach, one covering the west face where the RPG team had set up. The wall behind her was scored with impact marks from rounds that had come in during what we later reconstructed as the second assault attempt, sometime in the early hours of the second day. She had taken those rounds on the plate carrier and stayed at the gun. Corby was behind her, stabilized, alive. She had treated his wound on the first night, improvised a tourniquet from webbing cut from her own kit, kept him conscious and hydrated with the remaining water from both their packs. She had managed all of that while also staying on the gun through 2 additional assault attempts and 1 probing contact in the final hours before we arrived. Sergeant Carver saw the plate carrier first and stopped walking. The impacts on it were visible from 5 feet away, the deformed surface of the ceramic plate, the spall marks, the tear in the carrier webbing on the left side from a fragmentation strike that had come within 3 centimeters of the carrier's edge. He counted them out loud. He got to 7 before he stopped. "How are you standing?" he said. She said she had a rib problem and her left shoulder was not moving correctly. But she was standing because the position needed to be held until relief arrived, and she was the one holding it. She said it the way people state logistics, not defiance, not a speech. The position needed to be held, she was there. These were the conditions, the facts did not require emphasis. I helped her out of the compound and into the vehicle. She did not want to sit in the back. She wanted to see the approach road on the way out, and she argued for it briefly and clearly, and Carver told her she needed to be in the back with Corby, and she accepted that. She sat with her back against the vehicle wall and her hand on Corby's arm, and she was quiet for most of the 12-kilometer return to Davern forward. At the staging base, the medical team took Corby first. While they were working on him, she sat on a crate outside the medical bay and Sergeant Carver sat beside her, and the 2 of them did not speak for a while. I was doing equipment check 20 feet away, and I was watching them without pretending not to. After a while Carver said, "What's your record?" She looked at him. He said, "The file we had didn't include a service record. I'm asking." She thought about it for a moment, the way people think about things when they're deciding what is relevant. Then she told him, the basics, Special Operations Designation, 31 months, the units named by number only without elaboration, the weapon qualifications. The M240 last qualified 8 months prior, which was the gap between her previous deployment and the current one. Carver was quiet when she finished. Then he said, "The ops sergeant said you were a secondary asset." "I know," she said. "He wasn't wrong based on what he had." "No," she said, "he wasn't." She said it without bitterness. Not acceptance of an insult, more the recognition that a file is a file, and a file that does not include your record cannot tell anyone what you can do, and that is a condition of the work, not a grievance. 2 days at Carn Ridge. 11 impacts. 1 man kept alive. A position maintained until relief could arrive. No communication after the first exchange because the radio had taken a hit in the initial assault and she had prioritized the gun over the backup transmitter. We had come expecting to find a casualty. We had found a garrison. Carver stood up from the crate. He looked at her for a moment. The way he looks at things he is committing to a permanent category in his head. Then he stood at attention and gave her a salute that was formal enough that I stopped my equipment check and came to attention myself without thinking about it. It was that kind of salute, the kind that arrives before you decide to give it, because the situation produces it. She returned it sitting down because sitting was what she had available. She returned it correctly, crisply, right hand to the brow and down, and she did not look away from him while she did it. I have been on 4 relief operations since Carn Ridge. We have found positions in various states, some abandoned, some destroyed, some held by elements that had taken significant casualties. We have never found a single operator who had held a position for 47 hours under assault, managed a wounded teammate, improved the defensive position, and preserved the approach road for the incoming relief element. Carver put her in for a decoration before we reached Davern forward. He wrote the citation on a notepad in the vehicle on the way back in the dark, using a red lens flashlight. The citation was 3 paragraphs, and it was specific. It named the weapon system and the hours and the number of engagement cycles and the condition of the position when we arrived. It named Corby's survival as a direct outcome of her decisions over 47 hours. The citation used the word ironclad without explanation, as though the call sign were self-describing, which by the time I read it I understood it was. She went to the medical bay eventually, when Carver made the case that the rib problem and the shoulder needed to be documented regardless of what she intended to do about them. She went without argument, which I took to mean she had been waiting for someone to give her a reason to stop. The last thing I know is this. When the medical team removed the plate carrier to examine the impacts, they photographed it for the incident report. The photograph shows 11 marks, 4 rounds in the central plate, 7 fragmentation strikes distributed across the carrier's left side and shoulder, and a name tape on the chest reading veil. I did not know her last name until I saw it in the photograph. It seemed like a thing worth knowing. It seemed like the minimum. I have been on 4 relief operations since Carn Ridge. We have found positions in various states abandoned, destroyed, held by reduced elements. We have never found what we found at Carn Ridge. A single operator, 47 hours, 11 impacts, 1 man kept alive. Carver briefs every new SEAL joining our element on Carn Ridge before their first deployment. He does not make a speech of it. He states the facts the same way the citation does in order with the numbers. Weapon, hours, engagement cycles, the condition of the position on arrival, Corby's survival. Then he stops. The operators listen. They do not say much. They don't need to. That is the whole brief. The facts carry it.